Sure. I'm going to ask you all, first of all, I'm going to welcome you all. My name is Marty Mascari. I'm with the North Central Texas Area Agency on Aging. I'm going to do a couple of things. First of all, if you guys can, instead of raising your hand, we have so many participants that are going to be on today. It's going to be really hard to work on muting and unmuting you all. And in a webinar format, attendees come in a muted status. So if you could use the Q&A or the chat for any questions or comments you might have, that would be really helpful, and we'd appreciate that. I see there's 3 hands up, but once again, if you guys could put your hands down and then use the chat or the Q&A, that would be real helpful. First of all, I would like to welcome and thank our partners. This is a series we're starting up in partnership with CIGNA, and we have Dalia Vasquez and Teresa Palomino. I think she's here, but we lost her for just a second. But welcome, Dalia. Do you want to say something?
Well, I just want to say thank you for everyone who's attending, and Marty and our both Shelly and Cathy for being speakers to this fabulous event. And we look forward for everyone to join us on our future series. They're all very going to be full of information and just amazing, hopefully to everyone, and with good information from professionals. So we're very pleased that Marty's partner up with us, and proud that he's taking charge of all these arrangements and the logistics to it. And we're just very proud to be able to sponsor and present these good topics to the community and to professionals. So welcome everyone. And again, thank you Marty and Cathy and Shelly for participating, and our hero speaker who's gonna do her I guess her testimonial. So let's all have a great seminar.
Great, thank you so much. Teresa, did you have anything you want to add?
No, just same thing, same words along with Dalia. We appreciate y'all, viewing our first presentation, and hope to see you in the future.
Great, thank you all so much. Thank you for partnering. We're also partnering with the Alzheimer's Association of North Central Texas chapter, and Shelly's going to talk here in just a minute, and we'll get going. But there's a couple of housekeeping issues that I'd like to take care of here real quick. First, if I could. First of all, for those of you that are looking to obtain CEUs or certificates of attendance for today, here is the kind of the instructions or the information about that. The CEUs are being offered for social workers and LPCs for Texas. And if you need a certificate of attendance, you'll go through the same process as you would if you're applying for CEUs. There's 1.5 hours of CEU credits available. You must complete the entire webinar today to be eligible, and then we will send out a Google survey in a follow-up email at the end of today's, probably about an hour after today's webinar. And so you will need to complete that survey, and that by completing that survey, that is what will trigger us sending you the certificate. It asks you in the survey what type of certificate you're looking for, and then we'll send it to the email address that you put in the survey when you fill out the survey. But once again, we've got to go back and be able to verify that you were on, so it helps if you use the same email address that you used logging in, because we'll have to go back and check the Zoom records to make sure you're on. We have to keep that documentation in case we're audited, and we have been audited before on that. So please try to use the same one if you can. The certificates will be emailed to you to the email address, again, 2 to 7 business days. And it says the Survey Monkey, and I needed to change that. It's going to be the Google survey will stay up until the end of the month. So if you could get that by between now and the 31st, and again, 2 to 7 days after that, we'll get the certificates out to you.
Marty?
Yes.
There is a question in the box that somebody's having problems with double noise, double hearing and they don't know how to shut it off. Is there anything you can do to help?
Let me see if we mute everybody. Let me try to mute everybody except myself. Is that any better? You're going to have to, if you'll put that in the chat, if that's any better. Oh, okay, several people are saying they're not having, or some people are saying they're not having any issue. Hopefully that will take care of it if we keep one mic open at a time, if we could. But we'll watch. We'll try to watch that. If you do have any more problems, please let us know, and I'll see. But the only thing I really can do is make sure we have one speak on at the time. I don't know if that may be something that's coming from your end, but we'll try to watch that on our end. The next thing I wanted to bring up is I'm in the process of looking for topics for future events. And so for the month of March, I've put together a survey. And once again, you'll get the link to this survey after the webinar in the follow-up email. But you can apply to that survey or fill out that survey as many times as you would like. And for every time you fill out that survey, your name will be in a drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card. You're going to have to put your name and your email and your phone number in there. What I'm looking for is a topic title and a description of a topic that you would like to see us do a webinar, host a webinar on. Please, they need to be related to caregiving somehow. Caregiving is our mission. And so, but again, you can enter as many times as you want. Your names will be put in a drawing, the entries will take place between now and the end of the month, and the drawings will take place sometime before the 4th of April, and we'll notify the 3 winners before the 4th of April. So once again, you'll get that survey in the email, follow-up email after today's webinar. So now we're going to get going. I'm going to introduce Shelly Young. Shelly's with the Alzheimer's Association, and I am going to stop sharing my screen so Shelly can share hers and put up her slides.
Okay, so before I put up my slides, we're just going to do a little chat now. Somebody did actually type into the chat they want to know how they can get a copy of the handout. So that information was emailed to you today, but also it has been put in the chat a little earlier. So if you just scroll back up to find a message from Marty, there's actually, you can click on that and get a copy of the slides that we'll be sharing. But we wanted to start today. So I have invited a friend, also a client, somebody I've known for, I think, maybe 12 or more years. And her name is MJ. And MJ, actually, you were coming to our programs, I think, before you became a family caregiver, before you started caring for your husband. So how long have you been on this caregiver journey?
For my husband, I've been about 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And yes,
before that, I met you when you were, I think, taking care of a couple that you would go visit periodically and just kind of look after. So
exactly, yes.
So
I combined my massage work with companion work.
Right.
So I didn't do massage full time, and it turned into a career. Worked
Right.
out perfectly. And so I knew about you, attended seminars and workshops.
And that's my first memory of you, was you coming to our programs. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about when you first started to see changes in your husband. What were some of those signs that things weren't quite right?
I'm going to be really honest and say that my husband was drinking. And I looking back, I see now, I think his drinking was to medicate, because he was probably having, signs, symptoms of dementia, and it helped. It didn't help us. It didn't help his relationships with others. But I found also that he was making mistakes in the checkbook, and he used to have his own business, and he was always the accountant of the business. And he was using a lot of whiteout. And at about the same time, and I noticed it, and when he handed me the checkbook, I was stunned because he never handed over anything. And so that was a huge movement for him to give up the finances. And that turned into not just the bank account, but the bills and making decisions about insurance and negotiating insurance. And then it turned into, when we needed to repair things in the house, I had to deal with the person. He said, you call them. I said, okay. And then they would come to the house or we would talk to them and he goes, you decide. Yeah. He was always head of household and loved it. And all of a sudden I was head of household, and I'd never done that before.
About how old was he when you started to notice these changes?
He was in his late 70s. And so he had always had issues with anger and, relationship issues. But I can see now that those were probably part of the dementia.
A lot of people do tell me in my job that they look back now and they were seeing changes and difficulties in a loved one that weren't as simple as a very obvious memory loss. And so they realize afterwards, oh, dementia may have started much earlier even than we first thought. So that's not at all uncommon. So do you often find that you need to just take a break from this whole caregiving world?
Yes. I do. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What are your signs? What happens when you realize, oh, I kind of reached my limit, I need to take a break?
The repetitive questions,
Mm-hmm.
the repetitive statements. Immediately, he went to the denture office today and he didn't want to go. He has implants in the bottom, and he sat, and I was trying not to tell him too much, but then I found myself telling him what he was going to go do with a friend of ours. And he kept saying, are they going to take the pegs, the implants out? Is it going to hurt? And so, but look, I can eat with the pegs. And so that was frustrating. I didn't have an answer. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to, negotiate that. I wished I'd had, someone in my ear saying, don't say that. So he went to lay down, and I went outside and raked leaves really hard. And that helped because people have told me to, beat a pillow or throw ice cubes in the bathtub. And, that's too dramatic for me. But raking is kind of normal. So it felt good to just rake the leaves really hard.
Sounds very therapeutic. So is it safe to say that you just sometimes feel angry
Yes.
at him or the disease or even yourself?
Yes, resentful.
Mm-hmm.
I feel resentful that I'm the one, and then I feel guilty that I felt resentful.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's an onion starting to form.
Absolutely.
And his children are not speaking to him, haven't in years, because of his certain behaviors. And then the drinking made it worse. It wasn't good to put, throw, as I used to say it, through drinking was like throwing alcohol on fire. And so his children have abandoned him. So I don't have them. They don't live in state anyway, and neither do any of my siblings. I rely on my personal friends Alzheimer Association and what it has to offer, my community, my faith community.
Have you ever considered, or do you sometimes pay someone to come in and care for him?
I will, I want to. We're just now getting to that point that we can, because we both have our shots. So that's going to be good. Yeah, I would love to. And I'll just, you know, I feel like it's a burden on friends, even though friends offer. You know, he's a tough one. And, you know, am I the only one that thinks my person is the toughest? Maybe. But you put him in a car and he's just lovely, just goes down the street and loves everything he sees. And, but he was for a while going to a day program at a local care center here. It's an Alzheimer's center. And they had a day program, and the VA was supporting us through that. So that was wonderful. And it ended a year ago, and I don't know when they're coming back.
And I cannot imagine what it feels like to be a caregiver during COVID and to have that loved one with you 24/7.
That's,
and always underfoot, because my experience is they always want to be where you are or close to you.
yes. And that's interesting. When COVID began, I did panic. I had to bring him home from James West Center, and I just, you know, what am I going to do? And then it did get easier. Maybe my faith got stronger, maybe my community, the way I reached out got stronger, but it was actually fun. And then did I say fun? And then I realized I could leave him for an hour to go for a walk or to meet someone for coffee. And I found creative ways to cook, and you know, I just indulged in being a housewife. You know, I am doing everything. He thinks he's helping me, and I let him think that. I want him to think he's being productive and worthy. I want him to feel safe and loved. That is my mantra. But really, he's not. And I've just gotten into a routine where I, you know, keep house, pay bills, get it done.
So in a normal circumstance, what do you do to take care of yourself? I know you have continued to work and do your massage periodically. I know you go in the backyard and vigorously rake leaves sometimes, but what else works for you?
I like to get a massage. That helps. And then I like to give myself time after the massage, because I don't just want to jump back into the fray. And I get a lot out of my friends that are, faith-based with me, and higher power-based, solution-based, trying not to dwell on the everyday issues. And then I can come home and I do feel refreshed, and he has more of a sense of humor in the past year. That's made it easier too. His sense of humor is blossomed, which is weird and interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. So when my mom first started to show signs of dementia, I mean, she was always a sweet person and really loved people, but there was a kind of an underlying anger, something not right inside of her, and I never really knew what might have happened in her past that contributed to that. But it actually, it was like she forgot what she was mad at and was a little easier to be around. So it's so interesting sometimes, these strange things that happen in the course of the dementia. And there's no real explanation for them, but sometimes they're strange little blessings too.
Oh, that's interesting. I think that's very interesting, because I feel we went through that. And my theory after attending many symposiums, traumatic brain injury is what I think could have led to his Alzheimer diagnosis. He had a severe accident when he was a teenager, a couple that he tells me about. He, went flying off a motorcycle, was T-boned by a car, and another was hit by a baseball. So his, his cognitive, his ability to be rational, reasonable, and appropriate was not always obvious. It's not always there. Even before the diagnosis, way before. But he's functional, had a business, always self-employed.
If you had something that you could share with the caregivers that are on today, maybe something you wish you had known when you started this journey, or words of wisdom, what would you share?
It helps me to know what the stages can look like. Not that he is, falling into any category, because I've been to, 2 or 3 symposiums that offer you different gauges, different measurements. One is, as we know, Deepa Snow tells us colors, and she relates them to joules. And then another one is a 1 to 5. And then there's mild, medium, the stages like that. It didn't hurt me to go to those workshops that talked about the stages. And he may never fit into the category. He might fit into 2 or 3 at a time. And I did do some work at the Alzheimer Center, James West. I was an employee for almost a year. And I've given massage to people of all stages of Alzheimer dementia. Even the ones who are nonverbal, totally contracted, maybe angry, outbursts, physical. I learned, to dodge, but it still helped me to see that. When I left as an employee, I was glad I was gone. I needed to go. And it was time for me to, pay attention to him. It all happened at the same time. But I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad because I don't want to be shocked. I see stages that he goes through and things that he, he's going through this or that. And that has helped me tremendously. I've told someone I was doing my own case study. So looking at it as, I don't know if that's okay or not, but looking at it as a case study. I know he's my husband, but he's not, he's not all there. So he can't be my friend, even though I tell him he is.
Well, MJ, thank you so much for being with us today. It's a pleasure, and I really appreciate it. And I'm really blessed in that I get to see MJ almost every week, because she comes to our Friday group, and I'll tell y'all what that is later. It's a fun thing that we do every Friday, and I'd love to have some of you join us. So
thank you, Shelly. You've walked me through this.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
The Alzheimer Association. Thank you.
Thanks. We'll see you soon. Bye. I am going to share my screen now. So I hope everyone can see that. All right. And we will go ahead and jump into some of the content here. So we titled today's program, Caregiving is Hard. Get the help you need. And I have to do a little disclosure here. So I actually borrowed most of these slides from one of my coworkers. Her name is Elena, and she works in our REACH program, and I'll share with you about that a little bit later. but this program was originally titled I Feel Trapped. And I'm guessing that a lot of you who are on this call this afternoon can relate to that. I think caregiving can be one of those jobs that can bring joy, but it is also one that can certainly bring challenges. And it's one that we didn't ask for. And it's also one that we just can't automatically walk away from. Okay, Marty. So I am not, there we go. I wasn't able to change my slides for just a minute. So caregiving can be one of the hardest things you'll ever do, but it can also be rewarding for some of us. But most days, I think, feel more hard than they do rewarding. And I'll share just a little bit about myself. Both of my parents had dementia and lived in nursing homes. My mom actually was at home for about 7 years before she moved into a care facility. So I've had a fair amount of experience with caregiving. And I will say too that not everything that we talk about today is actually going to be dementia related. That just happens to be what I know. But chronic illness is chronic illness and can always bring a stressor. So let's talk for just a few minutes about some of the challenging emotions that you may experience. We know that anger, as MJ said, is one that a lot of us can feel at times, and we may be angry at the person that we care for. We may be angry at a disease. We may be angry at family members who aren't stepping in. And we may be angry at ourselves because we feel like we haven't done everything. And so I think it's really helpful that we not just spend a lot of time in that space of anger. Coping, we need to learn to forgive ourselves. Certainly taking a break can be very helpful. And then also even to consider some self-care tools, and I'll share some more of those a little bit later in. And let me also say that we so often in my world can give you tools and things that you quote need to do or things that you should do. And so much of what we talk about in my world may be simple, but it's not easy. And implementing change or learning to not be angry or to not be anxious can be a very challenging task. But we also know that if we don't get a handle on some of these emotions, that it can really harm us in the long run. One thing that I know that I periodically dealt with, and I think my dad did as well, because he cared for my mom for almost 10 years before he became ill, was that he would sometimes have anxiety about caring for her and what to do for her. And I don't know that he always expressed that as well as he could have. As he got older, he learned to better deal with it, and even at one point talked to his doctor and was on medication for a while. So I was really proud of him for that. But anxiety can have very definitely manifest in physical ways as well. We know that we can be very tired when we feel anxious, have some GI upset, heart palpitations, headaches are not uncommon. And again, I think the best thing that we can do for ourselves is when we notice that we're starting to feel anxiety, really try to nip it and deal with it quickly. What I found over time is that the longer I stayed in this place of anxiousness, the harder it was for me to pull myself out. And so when we catch this early, I think we can be much better off. And there are some simple things that you can do. Certainly things like meditation and prayer, deep breathing for a lot of us can work wonders. And then even physical exercise, that's something that can really help take the edge off. And it does not have to be that you go to the gym. And sometimes just turning on music and dancing while you're doing the laundry can be really therapeutic. So one thing that happens when we're caregivers is we have to get pretty creative in how we do our self-care, because we can't just leave our loved ones. And especially during COVID, it's not always an option to just run out and take a break. And then some of us don't have someone to care for our loved ones. So we do have to be creative in how we take care of ourselves. Resentment can definitely become a problem. We will often feel unsupported, and we can start to resent our loved ones that we're caring for, and also resent family or friends who we anticipate and expect to help us, and they don't. One thing that I would encourage you to do is work on your communication and what you need, and be open with people. If you need help, tell them. And don't just say, yeah, I'd like some help sometime, but be specific. There's even a tool out there, I believe it's called Lots of Helping Hands. And it's actually, I think, a calendar app that you can use on a computer or a phone, and you put what your needs are. And so if there's a doctor's appointment on a particular day, you can put it on there so that family and friends could actually volunteer to take a loved one to an appointment or do specific things. But don't expect people to know your needs, and be specific in what you want. Certainly impatience is part of what it feels like to be a caregiver. I know that my dad in particular would get really impatient with my mom sometimes because he was with her all the time. And she would just do some really screwy things sometimes. Often it was the repetition of her asking the same questions over again or doing the same things. And again, you learn simple ways to kind of manage what your loved ones are doing. I have to share one story that I still think is so funny. My dad was cooking one evening with my mom, and he decided to make a really nice meal. He was cooking some steaks out on the grill and baked potatoes, and so he gave my mom the cheese and a grater and asked her to grate some cheese so that he could put cheese on top of the baked potatoes. And the next thing he knew, he turned around and she was sitting at the dining table eating a pimento cheese sandwich. And she didn't remember what she was grating the cheese for, but over the years, she had probably made a few thousand pimento cheese sandwiches. And so kind of that muscle memory kicked in, and she just kept going. And the next thing we knew, we had pimento cheese sandwiches for dinner, I think, instead of steaks and baked potatoes that night. There's certainly an amount of grief that goes with caregiving, and it's a complicated grief, particularly if you have a loved one with a chronic illness, because their condition will change over time. And they're still living, and yet there is grief for who they used to be. There is grief for the role that maybe they played within the family or church, and it can have a lot of layers to that process. And then I even think it's interesting because for a lot of us, once our loved ones have passed, it's a different kind of grief. In some cases too, there is even a sense maybe of relief, because we know they're no longer suffering. And to manage that grief, I would encourage you to talk about what you're feeling. You may want to journal, and especially consider writing down some of the positive experiences and things that you had gone through with your loved one. Maybe even pull out photographs and share that with others who are on this journey with you, and you may find that really therapeutic. There is a certain amount of guilt that goes with this for a lot of caregivers. We put so much pressure on ourselves, and you'll notice here we use a lot of I need to, I should, I have to, and we need to take the pressure off ourselves don't allow yourself to stay in that space for very long. Acknowledge it and move on. And if you're finding it hard to move past the guilt, then please seek out help through education or a support group, or even some of the helplines. The Alzheimer's Association has a 24/7 helpline that we answer any time of the day or night that is specifically for caregivers. And I encourage you to not feel like you're in this alone. Depression, and this goes really close to anxiety, but don't allow yourself to feel depressed for an extended period of time. If you feel like that you're in a depression and not in a healthy place, then please reach out and get help. I am not a big advocate of medicating everything, but there are certainly times when medication can be very helpful and even necessary. And so I just encourage you to talk to your doctor if you're not feeling well, talk to a pastor, talk to a friend, reach out and get some support. So Marty, are there any questions that I might need to address right now? I'm going to look in the chat. Okay. Well, if you have any questions, please feel free to chat those in. Chronic illness is so difficult because we don't see an end in sight, and it certainly can lead us to feel helpless and hopeless. And even during this time, particularly of COVID, we feel that isolation and a certain degree of boredom. But there are some things out there, such as even apps on our phones and YouTube videos, and some things that we can do to help not feel so trapped in this caregiver role. I'm going to advance a little more quickly. I know we're our time is a little bit limited. So let's chat just a minute about self-care. And if you don't mind, for those of you who are actively caregiving, type in some of the things that you found that work well for you, things that you know you can do that are going to give you a bit of a break. We have all sorts of outlets these days, even during COVID. One thing that I've learned to do that has been really helpful to me is I got a dog a few months ago, and he is so much fun, and he likes to go on walks. And so we walk and do all sorts of fun things together. I'm gonna open up that chat and see what some of you are chatting in. Puzzles. Humor is the best medicine. Yes, funny movies. Taking a walk. You know, one of the great things about exercise and nutrition is it's good for our hearts, it's good for our brains, and then it can also make us, it can elevate mood, it helps us sleep. There's so many good reasons for us to take better care of ourselves. One of the best things that you can do if you are a caregiver is to take a break. And I know my dad did that. MJ talked about taking a break, leaning on family and friends. And for some of you, you may not have the option of someone coming in and helping you that is a family or friend. And it may be that you have to go outside and pay someone. And so here are just a few tips for if you need to get help in the home. And this is another thing, if you need to call the Alzheimer's Association, this is something that we can coach you on. And if you go to our website, you'll also find a listing of home care agencies. They are not necessarily vetted by the Alzheimer's Association, but at least it's a good place to start to get the names of some agencies that you can call. But I would encourage you to actually identify 2 or 3 that you want to talk to, and certainly ask your friends and relatives if they have ever used an agency. And then some things that you can talk to the agency about, you know, do they drug test their employees? Are their employees insured so that if they were injured on the job, would they be covered? Will you have the same person come into your home each time? And then another thing you want to know is, how do they actually train their staff? And almost all these places are going to give you positive answers to your questions, so you may need to dig a little deeper. Many of them will tell you that they do things such as dementia care, but ask them what they mean by dementia care training. In a lot of cases, and this is not bad, but it may be that they watch a single video on dementia and what dementia is. And so try to discern exactly what it is that they're doing to support their staff in their role. So now let's talk very briefly about dementia. I know I said I wasn't going to spend the whole time talking about it, but something that I so often hear, I'm assuming that many of you on this call are, I know some of you have identified yourselves as dementia caregivers, but even if you're not a dementia caregiver and you're taking care of an older person, the chances of you having to deal with your loved one having dementia at some point are good. Right now we know, I think the most recent statistic is around 6.2 million people in the US have Alzheimer's. That does not account for the other types of dementia. A lot of folks just assume that what they're seeing in a loved one is an age-related change, but in reality, it could be some type of dementia. And the single most common question that I receive is, what is the difference in Alzheimer's and dementia? And so Alzheimer's is a type or a cause of dementia. There are many different things. Some of you may have seen a graphic of an umbrella. And so the umbrella is dementia. And there are many different things that can live under that umbrella. Alzheimer's disease is a common type of dementia. Lewy body is a common type of dementia. We know people who have Parkinson's disease will sometimes develop dementia. People who have a history of small strokes can develop dementia. And the question then becomes, well, how do you know? When should you be concerned about a loved one? And I would say anytime you see a change in your loved one, you need to be concerned. And it may be as simple as you just taking some time to jot down some notes about what your concerns are. If you've got even a little notepad, if you see a change in your loved one, you're like, that's concerning. Jot down what you saw and when you saw it, and start to see if there are patterns that are emerging, and you'll want to communicate that to your doctor. So the things that we know can be indicators that a person is really struggling and that they do have dementia. One is a memory loss that disrupts daily life. This is not the benign forgetfulness that many of us suffer from. I've even done crazy things like drive past my own home because I wasn't paying attention. That is not dementia, that is distraction. But to give you an example of the dementia that my mom had, which was Alzheimer's, she would repeat herself over and over again. That is a disruptive memory loss. Also things like not remembering significant people in the family, who your loved ones are, not remembering the names of the grandkids. And I'm talking about the grandkids that you have a relationship with. I'm not saying that, you know, if you come from a family and you've got 27 great grandkids, sometimes it may be a little hard to retrieve the name. But when these are people that you've had a long-term relationship with and you can no longer remember names or significant events. I remember being with my mom one time, and she was asking me how her mom had passed away. And my mom was actually in the room with my grandmother when she passed. And so for my mom to not remember being present at her mother's passing was pretty concerning. So look for the severity of the memory loss. Look at how it's impacting that person's ability to function. We look for challenges in planning and problem solving, and this one ties to what MJ was saying about her husband who had run a company and had done all the accounting and no longer being able to do that. So, you know, if you have someone who's never been good at math, don't worry so much. But if you've got someone who is an accountant and they can't balance a checkbook anymore, then we want to be concerned about that. That should be reported to a physician. Difficulty completing familiar tasks. We saw this with my mother. She was not able to do simple things around the house, like even a load of laundry, because she just couldn't remember all the steps and what she needed to do next. Folks with dementia will often become confused with time or place. We see that in with the silver alert, people who get on the road to, maybe they're going to the grocery store or they're going to a church service and they end up in another state. And that is due to dementia and that confusion to time and place. Trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. We know that people with dementia will have a harder time navigating in their environment. And this can be particularly concerning if a person is still driving, because their peripheral vision is narrowing, and so they may not have a good sense of how close they are to other objects on the road. I think I'm going to stop or advance there. You've got some more slides of things that are concerning and can be signs of dementia, but to be respectful of our time, I'm going to advance a little more quickly. So I would just encourage you, if you're concerned about a loved one, the absolute first thing you need to do is get them to the doctor and have a thorough assessment. If you have questions or concerns about that, please join us on April the 1st. The Alzheimer's Association will be hosting a dementia conversation that day. And that program actually will cover 3 different aspects. We will talk about diagnosis and how to get your loved one to the doctor, because just because you identify changes or concerns for a loved one, it can be very challenging to get them to go to a doctor's appointment. We will also talk about legal and financial planning, and then also concerns around driving and how to get your loved one to stop driving if they're no longer safe. So please join us on April 1st. Marty is going to share that information after the program today. And we've invited to the April 1st program Dr. Lauren Walden. She is an associate at the USMD clinic at Clear Fork. And she's going to talk with us more about diagnosis, because folks have a lot of questions about how to get a loved one diagnosed, and can you be definitively diagnosed with Alzheimer's or related dementia? Do you have to have a brain scan? What even is the benefit of diagnosis? Because if you can't reverse dementia, there are not really great treatments right now, so why get a diagnosis? And so Dr. Walden will dive into that with us, and that's just next week. So I'm going to wrap things up. Just want to make sure that you understand that the Alzheimer's Association has a lot of different programs that may be of help to you. We do everything virtually right now, including support groups, education, and even early stage programs. And we have groups that meet every week for engagement purposes. We encourage you to invite the person with dementia to attend. We have an exercise class. We have a social group that meets on Fridays, and MJ and her husband do come to our Friday group. That's a lot of fun. This week we're actually going to be with the Kimball Art Museum, and they'll be showing some of their art, and then we'll have discussion of that. It's a lot of fun. We have a wonderful program. We actually partner with the Area Agency on Aging of North Central Texas and the United Way of Tarrant County. It's called REACH. It is specifically for caregivers whose loved ones still live at home, and the program lasts for 6 months. We will assign you a dementia care specialist, and that person will meet with you once a month to provide education and support. There is no charge for that. And if you want to receive information, please give us a call at our 800 number. That number is answered day or night. And we have trained dementia care consultants on that line, and they can help you with very specific dementia related issues, or if you just need more general information about services. So please check those things out. And I am going to turn things over to Cathy now.
Well, if you'll stop sharing your screen. Okay, I'll share my screen. But real quick, Shelly, thank you so much. It was very, very good. You know, while Cathy's speaking, could I get you? I think Cathy's going to answer some of the questions that are out there as she gives her presentation. But if you could look over the questions, and then after Cathy's done, maybe we could get you to answer which ones might be related to you. Is that fair enough?
Sure.
That's great. So Cathy, give me just a second and I will share my screen here and get you, I've got to get to your slides.
Okay, no rush.
Let me get down here too, and we should be right there. Can you see my slide? Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen, yes.
Nice. You go right ahead. This is Cathy Stump. She's the Senior Care Manager with the North Central Texas Area Agency on Aging.
All right, so we are going to get started with talking about respite. Shelly gave us a ton of good information about people finding services or information about people with Alzheimer's or dementia. I'm going to talk about respite services in general. So this is not for a particular disease or disorder, it's just respite services in general. So what is respite services? You hear this term a lot, and a lot of people say respite, however you want to pronounce it. We all know what it is. Respite is a fancy word for a break. So it's just providing a break to someone who is a caregiver. So respite services can provide different types of assistance to caregivers and the care recipients, depending on what the need is for the person, caregiver, or care recipient. So it can provide relief for the caregiver from their caregiving responsibilities. It can allow the caregiver to run errands or take care of their own needs, like going to the doctor. It can provide assistance to the care recipient, such as activities of daily living, which includes bathing, dressing, grooming, toileting, eating. So those are the primary activities of daily living. Respite can also provide just general supervision. So the person doesn't need any assistance with anything, but they need someone there with them while the caregiver is out of the home. It can also provide social interaction. Maybe the person just wants to do a puzzle. So, you know, the person who's providing the respite can do a puzzle with them. It can also provide financial relief in the form that the services that the caregiver does not have to pay for. And we're going to get into that a little bit more as we go through this presentation. So what programs provide caregiver services? So there's several different programs, and all the programs I'm talking about today are at no cost to the individuals. There's just different funding sources available to them depending on what they're eligible for. There is always the option to private pay for services, and Shelly gave some really good information about, you know, how to locate an agency to provide those services. So the four main ones that we're going to discuss are the Veterans Administration, Alzheimer's Association, Area Agency on Aging, and the Aging and Disability Resource Center. So we're also going to discuss some programs that provide in-home care services. Now, some of these programs don't provide quote unquote respite services, but they do provide in-home assistance for the care recipient, which can benefit that caregiver. And that's the community-based services these are all through Health and Human Services. There's the STAR Plus Waiver Program, the Community Attendant Services Program, and the Family Care Program. All right, so services through the Veterans Administration, they do have several different programs that they have started rolling out. They've had a couple that have been in play for a long time, but they have really tried to amp up their caregiver support services. So they have general caregiver support services that provides education and training for caregivers. They have in-home and support services that provide home and community-based services, such as adult day health services, which is also known as adult daycare. They have primary care services, such as nursing services, attendant care, help with managing medication. They have home hospice services, homemaker and home health aides, so that assistance with the activities of daily living, light housekeeping, and then of course that respite care, which for the VA can be in the home or it can be in one of their facilities. So how do you access these VA services? Because I don't know if any of you have ever tried calling the VA. It's kind of like you get lost in there and you're just rolling around trying to figure it out. Well, there's a couple different ways that I tell my clients to find services. One is the VA Caregiver Support Line. This is kind of newer. It hasn't been in play too long, but I've actually called it, and they are very, very helpful with helping a caregiver locate services, finding out if they're eligible for services, that kind of stuff. But the main one that I always tell anyone who calls and they say they're a veteran or had previous military service is to contact the County Veterans Service Officer. So each county in the United States has a Veterans Service Officer, and that person acts as an advocate and they help them navigate through the VA process. Easiest way to find that is go to your favorite internet search engine and type in your county and then Veterans Service Officer. So I always use Google, so I'd Google Ellis County Veterans Service Officer, and then pop up with who the Ellis County Veterans Service Officer is, their hours, where they're located, and what they can help you with. And that's who I would call, and they'll give you the information on how to access the services, get you plugged into where you need to go, and it's just a much quicker, much easier way for individuals to get through to get to the services that they need. All right, so Alzheimer's Association, obviously Shelly went over a lot of this information already, so I really only gave you a little snapshot of it. That they do offer those caregiver support groups. They do tons of caregiver education and training, and there's lots of really good tips and tricks on their website just for caregiving in general, not even for individuals with dementia or Alzheimer's. So I refer a lot of my clients there just to get some quick tips or tools to help them with caregiving. And then of course they have that REACH program, which is the evidence-based caregiver support program. And that of course is in partnership with the North Central Texas Area Agency on Aging and the United Way of Tarrant County. So how do you access those services? Of course, you can go to their website or you can call their 800 number, which is their 24/7 helpline. All right, so we're going to talk about Area Agency on Aging, or the AAA, not to be confused with AAA, the insurance provider that also fixes tires and provides roadside assistance. So if you're not familiar, the Area Agency on Aging is, there's actually one that covers every county in every state. So no matter what area you live in, you can find your local Area Agency on Aging, and they'll be able to provide tons of information to you. But we actually have two particular programs at our Area Agency on Aging, North Central Texas, that provide services in the home. So we provide caregiver support services, and that's the actual name of the program. And it provides services for caregivers of individuals 60 and over. So right now we, all of our services have to be for individuals 60 and over. The caregiver can be of any age, preferably over the age of 18, but as long as the individual who's receiving the care is over the age of 60. So we provide respite care, a short-term break for the caregiver, assistance with light housekeeping, general supervision, assistance with activities of daily living. Remember, that was bathing, dressing, grooming, toileting, and meal preparation. So Area Agency on Aging services are generally short-term in nature. Generally, you're going to get 3 to 6 months of assistance. Anything over that is considered quote-unquote long-term care, and there's other programs that provide that, which we'll get into in just a minute. Eligibility and criteria and services vary by Area Agency on Aging. So Tarrant Area Agency on Aging, Dallas Area Agency on Aging, they're going to have different services that they provide and different eligibility criteria than the North Central Texas Area Agency on Aging. But they do provide services to individuals 60 and over, and you can always call them for information about local programs. The other program that we have is the Care Coordination Services. This is for individuals 60 and over that may have a caregiver, may not have a caregiver, or their caregiver is limited in what they're providing to them. But it provides that in-home services, assistance with light housekeeping, or assistance with activities of daily living. Again, it's short-term in nature, 3 to 6 months, and as I said previously, eligibility and services vary by Area Agency on Aging. So how do you locate these services? So you contact your local Area Agency on Aging. I put the 3 up here that service this area. This is the North Central Texas area. However, North Central Texas Area Agency on Aging does not cover Tarrant or Dallas County.
Cathy, can I add one thing here that's really important? And I apologize, but we have people on the call from various areas of Texas, or on the webinar today, from various areas of Texas. And I want them to realize that in every county across the state, or across the country, there's an Area Agency on Aging. And so I will be including with the follow-up email the contact information for the people that are joining us out of East Texas and the people that are joining us out of the Hidalgo area. So we'll have that information for you. Again, as Cathy mentioned, they all provide different services. They're not the same everywhere, but we're going to give you that information. And same with the Alzheimer's associations that serve those areas. Thank you. I'm sorry, Cathy.
That's okay, perfect. Thank you. Because, I mean, I did mention that, but it's always good to hear it again. All right, so the Aging and Disability Resource Center. So I'm not sure if any of you have gotten onto the Health and Human Services website, but if you have visited it, you will see a phone number, an 855 number. That 855 number actually goes to your local Aging and Disability Resource Center. These are trained individuals that will help you find programs in your area, provides information, referrals to long-term care services, short-term programs, support information. They can help with food stamps, applying for Medicaid services, all of that. And Marty is actually one of our contractors for the Aging and Disability Resource Center, and they're, putting on these presentations. So it's wonderful. It's an excellent resource if you're just needing general information. You don't know where to start. That's where I would call. But at the North Central Texas Aging and Disability Resource Center, we actually have a lifespan respite program. These, and I'm not sure if all ADRCs have them or just certain ones. So you'd have to contact your local one to see. When you call that 855 number, it asks you to put in your zip code, and then it routes you to your local Aging and Disability Resource Center. But the Lifespan Respite Program provides short-term respite vouchers. There are no age restrictions. So if you are caring for someone who is 20 and you need respite, then that program would probably benefit you the most. You must not be eligible for any other respite programs. So if you're currently already enrolled in a state program or Medicaid funded program, you would not be eligible for those ones. And then of course you must not be able to afford to privately pay for respite services. So if you have questions or you would like to apply for the Aging and Disability Resource Lifespan Respite Program, if you want to advance to the next slide, Marty. Thank you. For the local, our North Central Texas Aging and Disability Resource Center, you'll visit their website or you call the 855 number. And then you'll type in your local zip code, and then you can ask about the lifespan vouchers. All right, so next up, we're going to talk about community-based services. And all of these programs are long-term programs. And when people think of long-term care, they most often think of nursing facility care. That is not the case. Long-term care can be provided in the home. And there are several programs that do provide it in the home. So when I talk with my clients and I'm talking about, okay, here's, a short-term program, what are the long-term solutions? Here are these programs that can provide assistance in the home because you don't want to place your loved one into a nursing facility either yet or at all. So there are state and Medicaid funded programs. They do provide long-term in-home assistance, and then some programs actually have respite care included into their program. And we'll talk about that STAR Plus waiver in depth in just a moment. All right, so because these are Medicaid funded programs, we have to talk about the Medicaid income limits. And please keep in mind, in the state of Texas, there are over 70 different types of Medicaid. That is 70. So when people say, well, I'm not eligible for Medicaid, my question is always, well, what kind of Medicaid were you applying for? So there are essentially a few types of Medicaid that do provide the in-home assistance services. So the income limits for these programs are a little bit higher than some of the other Medicaid programs that most people are probably more familiar with. But the income limits for the community attendant services, the STAR Plus waiver, and the family care program are all the same. The income limit is $2,382 per month for an individual and $4,674 per month for a couple. Now, Medicaid does have resource limits, and resources are cash in the bank, security deposits, anything that's considered has a cash value like life insurance policies, IRAs, 401ks, anything that you can receive cash from is considered a resource. So for community attendant services and STAR Plus waiver, the resource limit for an individual is $2,000. And for a couple, it is $3,000. The resource limit for family care is $5,000 for an individual or $6,000 for a couple. So there's a slightly higher, not much, but slightly. So what is community attendant services? Well, this is a Medicaid funded long-term care program that provides in-home assistance. So it provides assistance with activities of daily living. Again, that's bathing, dressing, grooming, toileting, meal preparation. It can provide assistance with light housekeeping. It can do the assistance with the meal preparation. It is non-skilled, non-technical assistance. You will not be getting a nurse. You will not be getting physical occupational speech therapy. You don't get any of those services with it. But you do get assistance with the activities of daily living and the light housekeeping. Now, respite is not a direct benefit of this program. However, help with these tasks for the care recipient can benefit the caregiver because they don't have to do it. And then, of course, because it is funded through Medicaid, the caregiver doesn't have to pay for those services. All right, so what is family care? Well, it is almost exactly identical to community attendant services, except the way it's funded. So it is state funded. So it is not Medicaid funded. It is state funded long-term care in the home. It provides that in-home services, assistance with activities of daily living, assistance with light housekeeping, assistance with meal prep, and again, it's non-skilled, non-technical assistance. And there's that little asterisk there. Respite is not a direct benefit of that program. However, help with those tasks for the care recipient can benefit the caregiver. All right, so how do you get these programs? So this is the phone number, this 888 number. This is the local Region 3, the DFW and surrounding area intake number. If you call that number and you're not in the DFW area, they will give you the correct number to call, or you can call that Aging and Disability Resource number and type in your zip code, and then the Aging and Disability Resource Center can give you your local intake number. But you're contacting the Health and Human Services Community Care Programs. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of DADS, or Department of Aging and Disability Services. This is what it has been renamed. So it's like Prince, they changed their name a couple of times. It was something, then it became DADS, and now it's the Health and Human Services Community Care Programs. All right, so now we're gonna get into Star Plus waiver. This is kind of the, I always compare this to cars, and I'm not super fancy, so Toyota and Lexus. So community attendant services is kind of like your little Toyota. You get your, power windows, power steering, you got AC, all the cool stuff. Star Plus waiver is your Lexus. You get your leather, your heated seats, the AC seats, because we're in Texas. This is the good stuff. So Star Plus waiver is a Medicaid-funded long-term care program in the home that provides assistance with personal assistance services, also known as community attendant services or family care or whatever. It's the same thing. It's just different programs call it different things. But it provides that assistance with activities of daily living and the light housekeeping. Star Plus waiver can also provide adaptive aids, wheelchairs, walkers, canes. It can pay for adult foster care. It can pay for the individual to live in an assisted living. It can pay for the day activity health services, which is also known as adult daycare. It has dental services as one of the benefits. It can pay for the emergency response service, which is that little life alert button. Help, I've fallen and I can't get up. It'll pay for that. It can do the home delivered meals or Meals on Wheels, medical supplies such as incontinence supplies, those diapers, those bed pads, pull-ups, also nutritional supplements, Boost and Ensure. It can pay for minor home modifications. These are modifications made to the home to make it safer for the individual to live there. Wheelchair ramps, grab bars, door widenings, walk-in showers, that kind of stuff. It can also provide nursing services, respite care, physical occupational speech therapies, and it does provide transitional assistance services for individuals who are in the nursing facility and do want to transition out of the facility on Medicaid onto Star Plus waiver. All right, so how do you access the STAR Plus waiver services? If you're already enrolled in managed care, meaning you already have a full Medicaid program or benefit, then you contact your managed care organization. CIGNA Health Springs is one of our managed care organizations. We have AmeriGroup, there's United, there's Superior, and there's Molina in this area. If you're not enrolled in managed care currently, you can contact the Health and Human Services Community Care Programs in that 888-337-6377 if you're in the DFW area, to be placed on the waiting list. Unfortunately, it is on a waiting list. We've been told anywhere from 6 to 12 months. Sometimes it's longer than that, sometimes it's shorter. Unfortunately, we are not given direct information about that. But in the long run, it's one of the best programs that the state of Texas has for individuals who need long-term care services in the home. All right, so probably the number one question I get is, how do I get paid to take care of my loved one? So in Texas, there is no program with the sole purpose of paying family caregivers. That's not how these programs in Texas are designed. All the programs are set up to meet the needs of the care recipient. So some programs do allow family members to be paid under some circumstances. So if you're interested in being paid to care for your family member, you first have to get your family member onto a program that provides in-home services. Because if they don't have a program, there's nobody to pay for those services. So what I always tell people is, if you want to get paid to take care of your family member, you need to get them on a program first. So the programs that, first, community attendant services is not on a waiting list, so that's probably the easiest one to get onto, and then get placed on the waiting list for STAR Plus waiver at the same time, so you get at least some benefit, a service, and then while you're waiting for STAR Plus waiver to open up slots. So when you call to access these services, what I always tell people is, don't say that you want to be paid to take care of them. Let them know that your loved one is in need of services. That way that person gets onto the program to provide the assistance that they need. Then you can apply to be the paid attendant at that time. Keeping in mind that you're going to make minimum wage, maybe slightly over, depending on what the agency provides, and that also you're not going to have a 40-hour benefit. These are needs-based programs, so the needs are determined by an assessment that's completed, and that determines the amount of hours. When I worked for the state, we hardly ever had anyone who had 40 hours a week. If you were getting 40 hours, you were very highly incapacitated and not able to do much for yourself. Now, if you are a caregiver and you're needing that respite services, I do not recommend being paid as a caregiver, because you can't access that respite benefit, because you're the paid attendant at that point, not their quote unquote caregiver. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, this is an individualized situation for everybody. So if you need the assistance for the individual and the money more than you need the break, then go for it. But just keep in mind, when you call the state, just let them know that your family member is in need of services, not that you want to get paid, because they'll tell you they don't have a program that provides that, which is true. The programs provide the assistance to the care recipient.
And
right.
This gets back to me.
Yay.
but let's go back. Cathy, I'm assuming you didn't put your contact information here because you want them to use the various numbers to access the services that they need, correct?
Correct. Just because if I put my number on there, they're going to call me for everything, and I may not be the best person to answer all those questions.
Great. Great. So there were various phone numbers that Cathy gave, but really the ADRC number is, if you're not quite sure, the ADRC 855 number, and I will put that in the chat again, is really a pretty good number because they can give you all of the other numbers you're going to need. So if you don't know exactly where you're going, feel free to call the ADRC statewide number. That is a statewide number. You'll put in your zip code, as Cathy said, and that will direct you to the local ADRC in your area. And somebody put 211, and 211 works as well. And so whatever works for you, but I get, once again, put the 855 number in the chat. Shelly, did you have anything in looking at the questions? Cathy, thank you so much. It was great. And I want to make sure we get to the questions. But Shelly, did you see anything that that you can help with answers on?
So I noticed a couple of questions that were related to Parkinson's, and if a person has Parkinson's and has developed dementia, then please reach out to the Alzheimer's Association and we can connect you with some of our programs that will be helpful to you. If the person does not have dementia, then we are not going to be the best resource. I do know in Tarrant County, there is a Parkinson's support group, and somebody who's on this call may also know this, and feel free to chat in. I believe that it is kind of managed through Texas Health Harris Hospital, but I think if you just Google Parkinson's support group in Fort Worth, you'll get information. And they actually meet regularly for support, but they also have an exercise class. So I would reach out and see if you can find the Parkinson's support group in your area. And also there were some good conversation going on about getting a diagnosis for dementia. And I would encourage you to join us on April 1st if you can, and we'll go deeper with that. But there are multiple options, even for a doctor. My parents went directly to their primary care physician and he referred them to a neurologist. And also geriatricians, and there are quite a few in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, can be a great resource. Again, if you have questions about that, you can actually reach out to the Alzheimer's Association and we can help you with some tools on getting a diagnosis and talk you through that process.
Someone mentioned getting contact information for MJ. I'm going to suggest, if you want to do that, if you will please contact the Alzheimer's Association in Tarrant County, since she's worked with them. I'm not sure that we have permission to give out her contact information directly, but if you'll contact, I know she does a lot with the Alzheimer's Association of Tarrant County. You can contact them directly and see. Cathy, did you see the question for you? I'll read it for you. Someone was asking if you had like a one-page sheet with the different information on it that's easy to hand out to clients of theirs. And first of all, I guess the answer would be, do you guys have something that would give, or 1 or 2 pages maybe, that would have a lot of that?
I don't have just like a straight worksheet. We did at one time, and then everything kind of changed. So I don't believe we updated it, but I'm sure we can make something pretty quick with that information.
If we find something or get something, I'll send it out to you all. There'll be 2 follow-up emails, and the second one will have some of that stuff, but I'll tell you that here in just a minute. Was there anything else for either one of you that you saw that you wanted to address?
I was just glancing through. There was someone who asked about the VA caregiver support programs. Unfortunately, I am not an expert at those. So my recommendation to you with your questions about those is to contact your local county veteran service officer, and they'll be able to assist you with that in answering those questions. I know it said widows of service members. I know there are programs that are eligible for individuals who were dependents of service members, so that may be something that you're eligible for. And I don't know if there were certain diagnoses that qualify a person or not. Again, I'm not an expert in VA services, I apologize. But contact your local veteran service officer and they'll be able to assist you with that.
Shelly, did you have anything else, Shelly?
I don't, but please don't ever hesitate to reach out to the association. Use that 24/7 helpline about anything, whatever your question may be, and you know, use this as a resource.
That's very good. Thank you all so very much. Really, it was. I'm reading all the people's appreciation for you all. It was very, very. It was very interesting and very, very informative. Thank you both so very much. I want to remind people of a few things. Number one, yes, we are recording this. I've had several people ask. It will be about 3 to 5 days, probably more or less, before I can get that recording out to you. It takes a little while to process it, and sometimes it processes easy, and sometimes it processes not so easy, and so the amount of time usually has to do with that. But we will send the recording link out to everyone who's been registered for this, so you will get that. If you didn't already see, we've posted the link to the slides. I will also include the link in the follow-up email that I send. There'll be 2 follow-up emails. The first one will include information with the CEU survey and the survey that I'll talk to you about in just a second. The second follow-up email will receive will include the recording, and that will be in 4 or 5 days. The first one will be in an hour or 2 once we get off here today. I want to remind you all about the CEU information. In order to get the CEUs, if you're interested, you were going to have to attend the entire webinar. And complete the Google survey that will be sent out to you. I know it says Survey Monkey at the bottom, but it is the Google survey, and it'll be up till the 31st of this month for you to complete. But you have to complete that, and that is what's going to trigger me sending you the CEU certificate or the certificate of attendance. The next thing is, again, for those of you that joined a little bit late, we're doing a topic survey drawing. We have a survey that will also go out with the follow-up email, and it's going to ask you some questions about future topics you'd like to see, and you can enter that as many times as you would like. For each topic you suggest, your name will be put in the drawing each time, and after the end of the month, at the beginning of April, we'll be drawing for 3 $50 Amazon gift cards. So I encourage you to help us find what you guys are looking for so we can present that for you. We are looking for topics that are around caregiving of some sort. It can have to do with legal. It can have to do with the care like today. Anything related to caregiving, those topics are what we're looking for. Then we want to talk about next month. We're doing this in a series, again in partnership with CIGNA and the Alzheimer's Association of North Central Texas, and I'm with the Area Agency on Aging of North Central Texas. We've partnered up to do this as a series of webinars. We're going to do them every other month. So the next one will be on May 26th, the same time as today, and it will be communication strategies for any stage of dementia. And so we'll send out the link to the flyer for that too in the follow-up email. That registration portal is up and running, so you can get in there and register for that today if you would like. And unless, Delia, I want to see if you have anything else you want to say before we finish up. And Cathy or Shelly, if you have anything that you want to say before we're done.
No.
Great.
I just want to thank everybody who attended, and this was very important information even for us. We're one of the Star Plus health insurance here in the Tarrant County, Hidalgo, and the Northeast. So it's so wonderful to hear all this information that it's easy to get, but a lot of people don't know how to reach this info. So thank you, Shelly. Thank you, Cathy, and also Marty for putting all this together, and our speaker, Miss MJ. That was wonderful. And again, thanks from CIGNA for being present. Have a great day.
Hey, thank you all. You all have a wonderful day. And again, look for our 2 follow-up emails. Take care.